Princess Lyria of Zarathia had always felt invisible, even in a palace that gleamed like a galaxy. Born with the rare gift of empathic energy, she could feel the emotions of everyone around her: joy, fear, anger, sadness. But her gift, instead of being celebrated, made her different. Her people were afraid of what they could not control. To them, she was fragile, too sensitive, and a distraction from the duties of the royal family. Even her parents, bound by tradition and the weight of their kingdom, kept a careful distance. She grew up alone in the grand halls, her voice unheard, her heart unnoticed. Lyria's days were quiet, almost painfully so. She walked through corridors that shimmered with light but felt cold like a beautiful cage. The nobles whispered behind her back, saying she would never lead, never make decisions, and certainly never marry. "She feels too much," they muttered. "She is a burden, not a queen." Their words stung, though no one ever said them aloud to her face. Lyria learned early to hide her feelings, to smile politely while her heart ached, to pretend she did not care. But inside she longed for someone, anyone, who would see her not as a fragile princess, but as a person with thoughts, dreams, and a beating heart that mattered. The gardens became her sanctuary. Towering crystal trees glowed under the twin suns, streams shimmered like liquid silver, and flowers whispered soft fragrances that calmed her soul. Here Lyria could breathe. She would wander for hours, running her hands over petals and leaves, talking to herself, to the wind, even to the stars. She would whisper her dreams, hoping the universe might hear her. "I just want to belong," she murmured, her voice breaking sometimes. "I just want someone to see me." But the universe remained silent, and the palace remained distant, cold, and indifferent. One evening, as the twin suns dipped low and painted the sky in shades of amber and violet, Lyria felt something strange. A pulse of emotion unlike anything she had sensed before. It was not fear, sadness, or anger. It was courage, hope, and warmth interwoven with a quiet human curiosity. She followed the feeling, and to her astonishment, a shimmering portal appeared between two crystal pillars. From it stepped a human. He looked ordinary in a way she could not explain, dressed in simple clothes. Yet there was something in his presence, steady, unshakable calm, that made her heart skip. Their eyes met, and Lyria felt a spark of recognition, as if a piece of her soul had been waiting for this moment all her life. This stranger, this human, did not look at her with fear or judgment. He simply looked, and she felt seen for the first time. "Hello," he said gently. His voice carried warmth that wrapped around her like a soft blanket. "I'm Aaron. I think I'm supposed to be here." Lyria blinked. Humans were stories, myths whispered in ancient texts of Zarathia. They were not meant to walk among their world, not in reality. And yet here he was. And yet she felt she could trust him. "I'm Lyria," she whispered, her voice trembling. "No one really wants me here." Aaron's smile was patient, soft, full of understanding. "Then maybe it's time someone did," he said simply. And in those few words, something inside her, long dormant, stirred. Hope. Possibility. The faint warmth of belonging that she had almost forgotten existed. For the first time in her life, Princess Lyria felt that maybe, just maybe, someone could see her for who she truly was. Not the fragile princess the court despised, not the burden her family feared, but simply her, a soul seeking comfort and finally finding it in a human's heart. And so, on that quiet evening under the glow of twin suns, a fragile connection began, one that would challenge a kingdom, change a princess, and show the power of courage, love, and the human heart. Days passed since Lyria first met Aaron, the human who had stepped through the shimmering portal into her life. Though her heart still fluttered with hope, the reality of the palace soon pressed down on her again. The nobles were not kind to strangers, and especially not to humans, beings they had only heard of in myths and tales. Whispers spread through the corridors like wildfire. "The princess has brought a human here? How scandalous. He is no doubt a spy sent to take our secrets." Even some of her closest advisors, those who had quietly respected her from afar, began to look at her with suspicion. Lyria's chest ached, but Aaron never wavered. He walked beside her calmly, as if the palace's judgments could not touch him. His presence was like a shield against the cold eyes of the court. "Don't let them shake you," he said softly one morning as they walked through the garden. Your heart is stronger than their fear. She wanted to believe him, but the sting of rejection was heavy. Even the royal family, those who should have protected her, maintained polite distance. Lyria realized that her world was still one where she had to hide her true self, where her gift of empathy was seen as weakness, and where her heart's longing for connection was dangerous. One day, the court gathered for a council meeting regarding a neighboring planet that had threatened to invade Zorathia. Normally, Lyria would have been hidden behind the towering crystal doors, her voice unheard. But Aaron whispered, "You can help them. You understand more than anyone else. You can make a difference." Her stomach tightened with fear. Could she really speak before the entire council, risking ridicule, disbelief, and rejection? She took a deep breath, remembering the warmth of Aaron's gaze when they first met, the gentle confidence in his words. That memory gave her courage. For the first time she stepped forward, her voice clear, trembling only slightly. "I can help," she said. "I can understand their fears. I can help us find peace without war." Gasps echoed through the chamber. The council stared at her, some with shock, others with disbelief. Her parents' faces were unreadable, caught between worry and surprise. But Aaron's eyes were steady, filled with pride. He did not speak, but the silent support he offered gave her strength beyond measure. Using her empathic gift, Lyria sensed the emotions of the delegation. Fear, anger, hope, uncertainty, all swirling like storms in their hearts. And she spoke to those emotions, acknowledging them, offering understanding and solutions that no one else could see. Her words, soft yet firm, carried a weight that astonished everyone in the room. When the meeting ended, there was a long, silent pause. And then, applause. Not loud, not immediate, but slow, hesitant, growing into acknowledgement. Some of the counselors began to see her not as fragile, not as unwanted, but as powerful in a way they had never imagined. Aaron stepped closer as the last voices quieted. "See?" he whispered. "You have power, Lyria. Your heart is your strength, not your weakness." Tears filled her eyes. She realized that for the first time, she had been seen for who she truly was, not for what others feared. And yet she knew the journey was far from over. The court's whispers would not disappear overnight, and there would always be those who doubted her, who feared her gift, who feared change. Still, for the first time, Lyria felt something she had never truly known: hope. A fragile, glowing hope that perhaps with Aaron beside her, she could survive the judgment of the world. Perhaps she could belong, not to the cold halls of the palace, not to the traditions that bound her, but to someone who saw her heart, who believed in her courage, who loved her simply because she existed. And so, as twin suns set once more over Zorathia, Lyria stood in the garden with Aaron. She realized that change was possible, not just for her, but for her people too. Perhaps a princess could teach a kingdom about the power of empathy, about the strength of vulnerability, and about the hope that comes when one heart truly believes in another. Lyria whispered to the stars above, "A quiet promise: I will not hide anymore. I will be seen. I will be heard. And I will find the courage to love no matter the cost." Aaron squeezed her hand, a silent vow echoing between them. Two hearts from two worlds, ready to face whatever came next together. The day arrived when Lyria could no longer stay hidden. A delegation from a nearby star system had arrived at the palace, and tensions were high. Zorathia's leaders feared war, but no one seemed able to understand the fears of the other side. Normally, Lyria would have remained silent, unseen in her own palace, her heart sinking in the shadows of fear and doubt. But with Aaron by her side, she felt a spark of courage she had never known. As the delegation entered the grand hall, Lyria felt the weight of every eye upon her. The nobles whispered and glared, questioning why a human had dared walk among them, and why the princess, so often dismissed, stood so confidently. Her stomach twisted in fear, but she took Aaron's hand, and his steady warmth reminded her of the promise she had made to herself. She would not hide anymore. The room was tense, filled with murmurs and wary glances. The delegation spoke first, their voices sharp, full of suspicion and pride. They demanded answers, solutions, and guarantees. Many counselors floundered, unsure how to respond. Lyria could feel the fear radiating from both sides, the anger that simmered just beneath polite words, the frustration of a stalemate that could ignite war at any moment. And then she spoke. "I can help," she said, her voice clear and strong, though it trembled slightly at first. "I can understand your fears. I can feel them, and I can help us find a way to prevent war." The room went silent. Heads turned toward her in shock. The Zarathian counselors exchanged worried glances. Her parents' faces were tight with disbelief, and yet Erin's eyes were fixed on hers, steady, full of pretty, and unshakable trust. Drawing on her empathic gift, Lyria reached into the emotions of the delegation. Fear, mistrust, pride, hope, all swirled inside her mind. She spoke to each one of them, acknowledging their feelings without judgment, offering words that calmed hearts instead of inflaming them. She suggested compromises, small actions of trust, and a shared plan that allowed both sides to save face while avoiding bloodshed. For the first time, the people around her truly listened. They heard not just a princess, but a mind and heart that could understand, guide, and heal. Lyria's words, though gentle, carried a weight born from the very thing that had once made her seem weak. Her empathy, her ability to feel deeply and care profoundly. Erin stayed silent, letting her shine, but his presence anchored her. Each time her confidence wavered, he gave her a reassuring squeeze of the hand or a small nod, reminding her she was not alone. And with him there, Lyria's courage grew, a quiet but powerful force that radiated outward. When the meeting ended, a long silence followed. Then slowly applause began, hesitant at first, then stronger. Some counselors who had doubted her looked genuinely impressed. The delegation members nodded, a few even smiling, acknowledging that the princess had prevented a crisis that could have cost thousands of lives. Lyria's parents finally approached, their faces softening with a mix of pride and astonishment. You did what no one thought possible," her father said, his voice husky. "You have a strength that comes not from force, but from understanding. We had underestimated you." Tears filled Lyria's eyes. For years she had felt invisible, unwanted, and weak. Yet now in that moment she realized something extraordinary. Her gift, the very thing that had set her apart, was her greatest power. And it had saved lives. Eren smiled at her, a quiet pride shining in his eyes. "I told you," he whispered. "Your heart is stronger than any army. Your courage is greater than fear." Lyria looked around the room at the nobles who still murmured and at the delegation who now regarded her with respect. She knew the journey was far from over. The palace still had its whispers, its judgment, and its enemies. But for the first time, she believed in herself. She knew that with courage, love, and the support of someone who truly believed in her, she could face anything. And as she stepped out of the grand hall with Eren at her side, Lyria felt a surge of hope, fierce and unshakable. Perhaps the unwanted princess could not only survive in her world but change it, and in doing so show that compassion, empathy, and courage were forces stronger than fear, tradition, or even war itself. The days after the delegation meeting were brighter for Princess Lyria, yet the palace remained a place of whispers and careful glances. The nobles, though impressed by her courage, still murmured behind closed doors. Some doubted her abilities. Others feared the human who walked beside her. But for Lyria, each day spent with Eren felt like a small rebellion against the cold, judgmental world she had always known. They spent hours in the palace gardens, wandering among crystal trees and glowing flowers. Lyria showed him her favorite spots, the quiet stream where the water sang softly, the hilltop where twin suns painted the sky in colors no artist could capture, and the secret alcove where moonlight touched every petal just right. Eren listened with fascination, absorbing every detail as if he were discovering not just a planet, but the soul of the princess herself. "It's beautiful here," he said one evening, brushing his fingers over a glowing bloom. "But you make it feel alive." Lyria smiled, feeling warmth bloom in her chest. For the first time in years, she did not feel like the unwanted princess. She felt seen. She felt safe. She felt loved, and yet danger was never far. Some nobles whispered that Eren was more than a visitor, that he was a spy, a threat, an intruder. They plotted behind walls and doors, fearful of what they could not control. Even small gestures of defiance, like Lyria walking with Eren in public, sparked outrage among the court. One evening, as the twin suns dipped low, Lyria turned to Eren, her hands trembling slightly. "If I stand with you openly," she said, her voice soft but firm, "I could lose everything. My position, my reputation, even my family's trust." Eren took her hands in his, holding them tightly. "Then we risk it together," he said. "Because nothing is worth more than living honestly, Lyria. You don't need their approval, you only need your courage. And mine." Lyria's heart raced. She had spent her life hiding, shrinking, pretending she did not feel. But with Aaron beside her, she found strength in vulnerability. She realized that the greatest risk, being true to herself, was also the path to freedom. In the days that followed, they began small acts of rebellion. They visited the lower districts of Zarathia, speaking with citizens, listening to their struggles, offering comfort, and showing that empathy and love could heal wounds that politics could not. They attended council meetings together, Aaron standing silently beside her, a quiet pillar of support. And slowly, whispers of doubt among the nobles began to shift into murmurs of admiration. Some began to see that Lyria's gift, her ability to feel deeply, was not a weakness but a strength that could guide the kingdom to peace and prosperity. Still, the palace remained tense. The nobles who feared change plotted quietly, and every step forward felt fragile. Lyria knew that one misstep could undo everything, yet she also knew that hiding would destroy her spirit. One night, sitting beneath the glowing stars of Zorathia, Aaron brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Look at me," he said gently. "You've already changed this world. You've changed hearts, and most importantly, you've changed yourself. Fear no longer controls you, and love no longer scares you." Lyria's eyes shimmered with tears, not of sorrow, but of clarity. She realized that strength came not from power or fear, but from the courage to open her heart, to trust someone, and to fight for what mattered. And so, under the twin suns' fading light, Lyria and Aaron promised each other a quiet vow, to face the court's judgment together, to stand for truth and love, and to show that even across worlds, hearts could meet, connect, and inspire change. The path ahead would not be easy. Enemies still lurked, whispers still lingered, and danger could strike at any moment. But for the first time in her life, Princess Lyria walked with her head high, hand in hand with someone who believed in her completely, and she knew that together, they could face anything. For weeks, Lyria and Aaron moved through the palace like quiet rebels, their bond growing stronger with every shared smile and whispered word. They had begun to change minds, to soften hearts, to show the people of Zarathia that empathy and courage could exist alongside duty and tradition. But not everyone welcomed this change. Among the nobles, jealousy and fear festered like a shadow over the palace. One evening, the palace buzzed with excitement. A grand feast was held to honor Zorathia's recent success in preventing the potential war. The halls glimmered with golden lights, and the air was thick with music, laughter, and carefully practiced smiles. Lyria, dressed in her flowing royal gown, walked beside Aaron, her hand lightly brushing his. To her, it felt like a dream. To others, it was an opportunity, a chance to strike. Among the gathered nobles, one man, Lord Malric, watched with a hard, calculating gaze. Malric had long resented Lyria, not for her courage, but for the attention and admiration she had begun to earn. The human by her side, a mere outsider, only deepened his envy. He whispered into the ears of those around him, spreading rumors with poisonous ease. "This human is no ally," he said. "He has come to steal our secrets. He seeks to betray Zorathia." Lyria did not know of his plotting until the accusation erupted in the middle of the feast. Malric stood, voice loud and sharp. "This human is a spy. He has entered our palace under false pretenses. Princess Lyria has been deceived." The music died. The laughter froze, and all eyes turned to the princess and her human companion. Whispers became gasps, and disbelief rippled through the crowd. Lyria's heart pounded. Some guests looked frightened, some angry, some ready to believe the worst. Aaron remained calm, standing tall, eyes meeting Lyria's. In that silent glance, he communicated more than words could. "I am with you. Trust me. Believe in me as I believe in you." Lyria drew a deep breath, feeling the familiar stirrings of fear, yet stronger now because of the courage she had been nurturing. She stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "Stop," she commanded. Her tone was firm yet calm, carrying the authority of someone who had learned to trust her own heart. "Aaron is no spy. He has done nothing but help me, help this kingdom, and help you see the truth. He came here to protect, not betray," the nobles muttered, some unconvinced, some curious. Malric's eyes narrowed, but he did not speak. Lyria reached deeper into her gift of empathy, sensing the emotions around her, the fear, the jealousy, the confusion. Carefully, she wove her words with compassion and honesty, revealing not only Aaron's truth but also the motives of those who sought to deceive. She spoke of loyalty, courage, and trust, demonstrating that the bond between her and Aaron was not a weakness but a strength. One by one, the counselors and nobles began to see clarity. Proof of Malric's deceit was revealed, a secret correspondence showing his plot to sow discord. Gasps filled the hall as the whispers of suspicion shifted to murmurs of shame and surprise. Aaron's hand found Lyria's, squeezing it gently, a grounding presence amidst the chaos. Lyria's chest swelled with pride and relief. She realized something profound. Her courage had saved not just Aaron but also the trust of the people around her. She had turned fear into understanding, betrayal into truth, and judgment into respect. Malric was escorted away, his plot exposed, but the palace had been shaken. Some still whispered, some still doubted, but a new understanding began to take root. The princess who had once been unwanted was not only brave, but wise. She could face treachery, defend those she loved, and rise above fear. That night, in the quiet of the palace gardens, Lyria leaned against Aaron, her head resting on his shoulder. "It's never easy," she whispered, "to stand when everyone doubts you." Aaron kissed her forehead softly. "No, it's not. But you stood. You trusted yourself, and that is what makes you stronger than any palace, any noble, or any fear." For the first time, Lyria felt the weight of her courage balanced with love. She had been betrayed, tested, and doubted, but she had emerged not broken but radiant. And she knew in her heart that together, she and Aaron could face any storm the world sent their way. After the chaos of the feast and the betrayal of Lord Malric, the palace slowly began to change. The people who had doubted Lyria started to see her differently. Her courage, her honesty, and her compassion were no longer weaknesses. They were strengths that inspired others. She walked through the palace halls with a newfound confidence, each step reminding her that she was no longer invisible. And always by her side was Aaron, steady and unwavering, the human who had crossed galaxies to stand with her. Lyria spent more time among the citizens of Zorathia, listening to their stories, helping them in small ways, and showing that the royal family could be more than distant rulers. She realized that her gift, empathy, was not just a tool but a bridge. It allowed her to connect with people in a way that words alone could never reach, and wherever she went, Aaron followed, silently supporting her, his presence a shield against the lingering doubts of the court. One morning, Lyria's parents approached her in the palace gardens. The twin suns bathed the crystal leaves in golden light, and for a moment, the palace felt like a safe haven rather than a cage. Her mother's eyes were soft, and her father's posture carried the weight of pride and regret. "You have shown us what we could not see," her mother said gently. "You are wise, brave, and compassionate. And your heart. It has led you to a truth we cannot deny. You are worthy of love, Lyria, as you always deserved." Tears filled Lyria's eyes, but they were tears of joy, not sorrow. She had longed for approval, for acceptance, for the warmth of being truly seen. And now, standing in the presence of her parents, she realized she had found it not just from them but from herself and from Aaron, the human who had believed in her when no one else did. Aaron took her hand, a soft smile on his lips. "You've changed this world," he said. "Not by power but by being who you truly are. And in doing so, you've shown everyone that love and courage are the greatest strengths of all." Lyria squeezed his hand, feeling the warmth of truth and trust radiate through her. She knew that their journey had been long and hard, but every challenge had strengthened them. Together they had faced suspicion, betrayal, and fear, and now they stood stronger than ever, their bond unshakable. The citizens of Zorathia began to follow her example. They saw that empathy could guide decisions, that kindness could build alliances, and that love could be a force stronger than fear. Even some of the nobles who had whispered against her now offered quiet respect, recognizing that the princess who had once been unwanted was now a leader in both heart and mind. One evening, as the twin suns set and painted the sky in shades of amber and violet, Lyria and Aaron sat together on a balcony overlooking the city. The lights below shimmered like stars, and the soft hum of life filled the air. Lyria rested her head on Aaron's shoulder and sighed, a sound of relief, joy, and quiet triumph. "Do you ever regret coming here?" she asked softly, glancing up at him. Aaron shook his head, his gaze steady. "Never, because all of this, it's more than I could have imagined. You've taught me what it means to trust, to fight and to love across worlds. And you've shown me that even a single heart can change an entire kingdom." Lyria smiled through her tears. She realized that true strength was not measured by crowns or armies, but by the courage to trust, the wisdom to care, and the bravery to open one's heart, despite the risk of pain. With Aaron by her side, she no longer feared the judgment of the world. She had found acceptance, love, and the knowledge that she could face whatever came next. And as the stars began to twinkle in the sky above Zorathia, Lyria understood something she had never known before, that being different, being compassionate and being true to herself was not a curse, it was her greatest gift. And with Aaron beside her, the princess who no one had wanted had finally found her place, her strength, and a love that transcended worlds. Years had passed since Aaron first stepped through the shimmering portal into Lyria's life. The palace that once echoed with whispers of doubt now hummed with a quiet respect. The citizens of Zorathia looked to Princess Lyria not as the unwanted girl who had been ignored, but as a leader who had courageously faced fear, betrayal, and judgment, and had risen above it all. And always by her side, steady as a star in the night sky, was Aaron, the human who had believed in her when no one else did. The twin suns set, casting golden light across the palace gardens, illuminating the paths they had walked together countless times. Lyria and Aaron strolled hand in hand, their fingers intertwined, their hearts beating in quiet harmony. The gardens, once a place of solace for a lonely princess, now felt alive with laughter, whispers of the people, and the warmth of shared history. Every tree, every flower seemed to celebrate not just the beauty of Zorathia, but the courage of two hearts that had dared to love across worlds. Lyria paused, looking at Aaron. Her eyes, reflecting both the glow of the setting suns and the depth of her soul, softened. "Do you remember the first time you came here?" she asked, a small smile tugging at her lips. Aaron laughed softly, his voice gentle but strong. "How could I forget? I was terrified. I didn't know your world, your people, and yet somehow I knew I had to be here. You gave me hope when I had none," Lyria whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You saw me not as a fragile princess, not as someone unwanted, but as me. And because of you, I found courage I didn't know I had." Aaron pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. "No," he said, "it wasn't just me. You had that courage all along. I just helped you see it. You stood up when others doubted you. You trusted your heart when everyone else questioned you. You changed your world, Lyria, because you believed in yourself and in love." The palace behind them, the city beyond, and the stars above all seemed to pause in that moment. Lyria realized that the life she had once longed for, the approval of her family, the acceptance of her people, was no longer distant. She had earned it not by bowing to fear, but by rising above it. She had turned judgment into understanding, betrayal into truth, and loneliness into love. Aaron held her hands, looking deeply into her eyes. "Whatever comes next," he said softly, "we face it together. Not as princess and stranger, not as alien and human, but as two hearts who chose each other." Lyria nodded, tears glimmering in her eyes. "Together," she echoed. In the years that followed, the story of the unwanted princess and the human who loved her became legend. Children whispered it as a bedtime tale, and elders told it as a lesson in courage and empathy. Lyria's gift of empathy, once feared, became the foundation of a new era for Zorathia. A kingdom where understanding, compassion, and bravery were treasured above all else. And through it all, Aaron remained her partner, her confidant, her anchor. They faced challenges, yes, but nothing could shake the bond that had formed in the garden under the twin suns so long ago. Together they had survived judgment, betrayal, and fear. Together they had built a kingdom not only of power, but of heart. Finally, one quiet evening, as the twin suns set and the stars began to shimmer, Lyria and Aaron stood atop the highest balcony of the palace. She leaned against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart, and whispered, "I used to be unwanted, invisible, afraid. But with you I am seen. I am loved. I am home." Aaron kissed her gently, a promise of all that had passed and all that was yet to come. "You are more than a princess," he said. "You are the heart of a world and the love of my life. And together, we will shine brighter than any star." The twin suns dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a sky filled with shimmering stars. And in that light, two hearts, one alien, one human, stood united, unbroken, and stronger than ever. A kingdom had changed, a princess had grown, and love had conquered all. The alien princess no one wanted had found her place. She had found her courage. She had found her home. And most of all, she had found comfort in a human's heart. The universe, vast and infinite, seemed to smile upon them as their story began a new chapter. One of hope, unity, and love that would echo across worlds for generations to come.